And welcome back to another episode of Behind the Post. My next guest transitioned from a successful career in New York as a professional makeup artist to the vibrant high-tech scene in Israel. As a social media and community manager at DID, he plays a crucial role in the company's mission to revolutionize generative AI-powered interactions and content creation. He lives in Tel Aviv with his dog Milo and his cat Tessa. In his downtime, he enjoys CrossFit and watching Netflix, and he also co-hosts a podcast with his brother called All Brucked Up. So join me in welcoming Sheldon Bruck to the show. Sheldon, are you ready to go behind the post with me?
I am ready. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Of course, I'm so excited too, and I can't wait to jump into this episode. The topic is really going to resonate with the social media managers out there and help them find ways to be more productive in their job. But before we get into all of it, please tell us, what is DID and what does your role entail?
So as you mentioned, we are in like the generative AI space. We basically started with our product that you could transform images, videos, text, and audio into a hyper-realistic avatar. And then we recently launched a product called Agents, which are our real-time streaming avatars that you could basically customize its name, its voice, everything, including what you want it to do. So it could be a customer support agent, it could be a bank teller, it could be whatever you want. You just upload like documents to its knowledge base. Super cool. And I am the social media and community manager there, as you mentioned. I've been there now for almost 6 months, and it's been amazing. I absolutely love it there.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And it sounds like such a cool product to be the social media and community manager
Yeah,
for.
I know that's
Um,
why I had to like mention. I love it. That's why right
yeah,
when I saw this job, I was like, oh my God, it was like a dream job
just gravitated towards it. Um,
immediately.
I love that. So social media managers in general are responsible for a lot more than what someone pictures when you say social
Yeah,
media.
a
Us,
lot
so
more.
a lot, and our social media managers know the internal battle of individuals in our like, industry or organization thinking that all we do, and I say in quotes, is all we do is post on social. But we have
Yeah.
exactly, and we have a lot of hats to wear. A lot. It includes writing copy, creating graphics, community management. Feel free to throw any at me. Monitoring analytics, planning a social strategy, monitoring trends. There's so many, and I'm probably not getting all of them at the top of my head right now. So I'm really
Right,
sorry.
exactly. I know because you can't even think of all them. There's just so
Yeah,
many.
there's so many. So I'm really sorry to social media managers. They're probably screaming at their phone right now, more roles at me that I'm just not
Literally.
getting. But I know from conversations with you in the past that you are super busy. You do so much as a social media and community manager at DID. So the main
Yeah,
question I really want to get to the bottom of on this episode is, how do you stay productive with everything you have going on? So let's start
that's a
with
really good
tools.
question. Yeah,
Let's
so for me, I'm like super OCD in general, but when it comes to my job and everything, I need to have everything like very organized. It's just like the way I am, the way I've always been, for better or for worse. So for me, it's really important to really have like everything laid out and really prioritize in different ways. So I work with Asana. That's where like I compile my whole like social media planner for all the different platforms and everything. And like I break everything down into projects that are upcoming, projects that I'm currently working on, things that are pending approval, approved, done, etc. So this way I have everything laid out. And then I also have other boards which really help me with like ideas and stuff like that. And for our communities, we have a large community on Facebook. We recently opened one up on Discord. So I really like tailor everything for each different platform and have everything really compiled. And then separately also my to-do list, and that's also prioritized. So this way I'm doing a million things at once, but I have everything really neat and laid out. So it's not like super overwhelming, like, oh my God, where do I even begin? And then I have everything set by like the date I should start it, as well as publish date or due by date. So for me, that's the most important thing. And then obviously, when it comes to the like monitoring all the social media platforms and channels that we have, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Like I said, we have a community on Facebook, on Discord, and I'm just one person. We don't have like a team yet. So basically, I like if I had to do everything manually, I wouldn't have the time in my day, and I wouldn't even be able to do all the other things I need to do because, for example, like just our inboxes, we get flooded with messages all the time from customers on all the different platforms. So I used to have to go to Facebook and then Instagram and then this and that just to look for the messages. So that's what led me to Octopost and incorporating that. And since we started that, because I literally worked 2 months without it, and I was losing my mind. It's made my life like a million times easier. Like you don't even understand. like just the inbox thing was already like, oh my God, but I'm able to have everything scheduled in advance. I'm able to see previews of everything. I'm able to have everything laid out. I can set things in queues. So if I have things that are, just having to go out at certain times, I can set it the way it is. And it's basically like, set it and leave it. And like for me, that's super important because then I have to work on the other things. We don't have a graphic designer. We actually recently hired one who's starting soon. So for all the content and everything I do, generally I'm the one who's creating. Oh, sorry, that's my cat Tessa.
Tessa's
I'm the
making an
one,
appearance.
right? So I'm the one who does like a lot of the graphics. I do a lot of like walkthrough demos. So we have video editors, but I like also video editing. They're working on other projects, so I often do all the editing and everything for all of those videos. So by being able to have a platform like Octopus where I could schedule everything, where I could have everything organized, where I don't have to worry about that as much and not having to have my time wasted by going to all the different platforms. I'm able to do all those other things and not feel overwhelmed at the end of the day. So having a social media management platform tool, whether Octopus or otherwise, is just like that's like basics 101, like so crucial. And with some companies, like my last company that I was at, and I was telling them how we need this, they're like, is it really necessary though? And I'm like, it's kind of like what you were saying. People think all you do as social media manager is just post. So I literally would walk them through all the things it does, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm like, "Right." I was like,
Yeah,
"Because for you, it's like,
like
what do you mean?
so
All you
necessary.
do is you go on and post it. Like, no, and also like having a listening tool, seeing what your audience is talking about you, seeing what your audience is talking about competitors, all those kinds of things. And that's also an Octopost, having everything just streamlined in once. And then also, in addition, having integrations with things like Bitly. So I'm able to track all those Bitly links is super important. And it really just brings all these different tools because as social media managers, we work with so many different tools to be able to have all them and kind of pull them onto like one, streamlined platform. It's like, it's just literally night and day,
Yeah,
for
game
sure,
changer. It really helps
beyond.
with productivity. And another big part of productivity is time management and knowing what to
Okay.
prioritize. But in the world of social, everything seems to be moving so fast just on social. And then you could be working
Yeah,
something and someone walks in and they're like, hey, we need a post about this, or hey, we need this.
all
And
the
then you're just
time.
constantly, everything's moving so fast and you need to know what to prioritize. So I know no day in social is the same, but in general, can you share what a typical day looks like for you as a social media manager?
Yeah, so for me and everything, a few times a week, I have a quick sit down with my manager just to go over things. We also sit next to each other, so if things happen randomly, we'll just tell each other. But we kind of like to have like quick, 15-minute catch ups just to see like what I'm up to this week, what do I have working on, anything he's working on. Because I report to the head of content and creative, so he basically will like tell me if there's any PR things or something was picked up or anything like that. But obviously, we're a startup and things are always changing, or like a new article came out, or like, the VP is speaking here, like this and that. So it's like you have to be the type of person who can be in a very dynamic work environment. I'm not like a spontaneous person in my personal life. Like I get anxiety from that kind of stuff. When someone's like, oh, you want to like meet up at the beach in like 5, 10 minutes? And I'm like I needed to mentally prepare for that. You know what I'm saying? But for me at work, I feel like I'm not the kind of person that could sit like, a desk job crunching numbers. For some people, they are really good at that and they like that. For me, I'm like, I can sit still. It's like when I go to the gym, I can't just sit on a treadmill or whatever because I'm like
Yeah.
losing my mind. It's like I need to do something else. It's not like stimulating enough. So by working environment where things are just popping up, where I'm getting last minute stuff, it keeps things fresh. Sometimes it could be a little overwhelming if like, it's almost the end of the day, you have to do something else. But I'm also the type of person where like I'd rather be too busy than have too much time in my hands because
Okay.
it's like, that's when it's a little too much. So yeah, so for like a regular day, it's really the, obviously seeing everything that's scheduled and going out, making sure everything's accurate, obviously meeting with the manager, seeing what's happening, what's going on, what I need to work on. But also once the posts are live and everything, I constantly monitor the analytics. Literally every couple of minutes, I'm literally back on my phone looking at how things are happening, how things are reacting, especially in the first hour that the posts go up. And then also seeing, the kinds of posts that our competitors do, seeing how that's resonating with their audience. In the AI world, you have things popping up. We've been around since 2017. In the past few years, after ChatGPT and everything, you see all these companies, popping up like left and right. Like my coworker started laughing at me yesterday during a meeting because I have a little vape that I smoke and it says like Genie AI on it. He's like, what is AI about your vape? I'm like, they tell you it's something about the battery shutting off, which is like a circuit in case so it doesn't explode, but like they call it AI. Everything is just like it's kind of a
Yeah,
buzzword.
yeah.
Um, So it's really just staying up to date, what's going on in the industry, staying up with the industry terms. Things are so rapidly evolving in the AI space, and the technology is advancing so fast that you don't have time to just, la-di-da around. Like you have to stay on top of everything that you do. So it could be a balance, staying on top of everything going on in the industry, staying on top of our competitors, staying on top of our customers, all these kinds of things. But it's exciting, and anyone who's a social media manager knows that it could be overwhelming at times, but if you're working at a company that you love and you have great coworkers, which is like literally number one, it's exciting and it's fun,
Yeah.
and you feel like you're contributing to something and you're helping to elevate it. So when you see the progress that you're making by taking on these platforms, like I mentioned, they didn't have a social media and community manager before me, so I'm the first one. So to be able to see it and to also demonstrate all the different changes and how much we've grown just from organic social media, it's pretty cool, and it makes me proud of what I'm doing for the company. So
For sure.
yeah.
So when it comes to responsibilities that you focus on daily to weekly or monthly, like I'm assuming daily is also like community management and
Yes.
those type of things. Then monthly, weekly, is it sort of you focus on reporting? Like maybe weekly you look at the stats from last week, let's say,
Yeah.
whatever you
Yeah.
do, and
Yeah.
then monthly you build reports. How does it work for you?
So for me, I mean, like I said, I'm like always looking at the analytics, but definitely week over week, I definitely look over everything, breakdown on all the different platforms. And then I break everything down into different, like, on Octopus, what they call campaigns. So I break down all my campaigns are basically categories, and then I tag all the posts that go out as subcategories. So let's say we put out 10 blogs in 1 month, which we usually have more. Let's say we put out 10 blogs. So I could track and see the performance of just the blogs and everything, but I want to know, what blogs are resonating with our audience. Is it more like the telco space? Is it more, the retail space? To see, the types of blogs, the type of content that's really resonating. Because blogs as a whole, seeing that as a category is great, but you really want to see, digging into the deeper details. It's like that's why a lot of us refer to just the overall metrics, total impressions, total this, total that as vanity metrics. Because yeah, obviously there's an importance to it, but it's also if you're doing a bunch of different types of posts, you really have to break down and see all the kinds of posts that are resonating. Because you might have, in one category, you might have like a really, really high engagement rate. And then you have, if you have posts going out there, just hiring posts, those are really only going to capture and really only necessitate to a certain amount of people that it's going to bring down that engagement rate in total. But by looking at it separately, you're able to see what needs to be worked on, what needs to be improved, how you can re-strategize. So that's something that's really important. So that's why I'm constantly looking at the numbers every week as well. And then once a month, I have a presentation, a meeting with my manager and our VP marketing. And I pull together a whole presentation of everything going on all the different social media management platforms and comparing us against our competitors. It ends up usually being like 30 or 35 slides. And I'm currently working on our Q1 presentation. But it's fun and it's good to see. And it's, with social media, a lot of people get so hung up on the numbers. And like I mentioned, the numbers are important, but also I feel like for some people, at least that I've spoken with, sometimes it can hold them back from experimenting or trying new creative things because they're worried if it doesn't work, then it's going to bring down everything else and all that stuff. But sometimes you might try something and you're like, oh, I don't know if it's going to work, and it ends up being amazing. And then you're like, oh my God. It's like
Yeah.
sometimes you create a post you think is really going to land with your audience and like it doesn't do so well. Then
Yeah.
you have one that you're like, oh yeah, this seems pretty good. So you think of it kind of almost like a filler post and it does amazing. And then you're like, oh my God. So it's like you can get surprised, really the way people interact with things and the things that really, catch their eye, because what you might think is something that might be interesting or eye-catching is not necessarily what they think. So
Yeah.
really listening to their conversations, not even just about your company, just
Yeah.
listen to the conversations in general and how they act on the platform, you can learn so much. And there's a lot of psychology behind marketing, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. And that got me into it.
For sure. So I know you love analytics. I'm going to quickly jump to speaking to you about analytics quickly because we're already on it. What metrics do you focus on and why?
So I get that question all the time. So for me, it's like all that. Like my manager too. It's like we really focus on all of them. So but like for me, it's like that's what I was saying. Like it's really to me, it's really breaking down all of them by category, subcategory, and really refining everything in terms of that, because you have to see the types of content that resonate. Obviously, videos are going to perform better in most cases. So you might want to start doing that as opposed to like static images. And then you'll obviously have to come up with all those creatives and everything. But it's really important to assess all of them. And then on top of that, the VP marketing, he really likes to dive really deep into the details. So like in terms of like he wants to see the average likes on, the post, like the ratio of likes to posts, like what the average likes is, what the average comments is, what the average shares are. And then also seeing that with our competitors, and breaking that down to different categories and seeing what it is with each category and seeing like, oh, why did this one miss the mark? Or like, and we pivoted from like more B2C to B2B, where a lot of our in the beginning, like a lot of our clientele were content creators and digital influencers, and we definitely still have some of those, but we've really shifted more towards enterprises and other like small to medium businesses. So it really, with that shift, really had to come assessing how they're going to interact with the content, and obviously you see that in the analytics, because what might have resonated with our audience beforehand is not necessarily what's going to be tailored for a more professional business type of audience.
Yeah.
So with that transition, it's like that's why I'm really on top of the analytics now, and we're really diving deep into everything because we're still really honing in our ICP, like our ideal client profile.
Yeah. So you've really nailed the why analytics is really important in shaping a social strategy, because you can see what's resonating with your audience. And like you said, what you think might be resonating, like maybe what I want to post about might not be what my audience wants to see and wants to learn.
Right.
So you've really hit the nail on the head there with like why it's so important. I kind of want to flip it a little bit and ask you, why do you think every social media manager shouldn't shrug analytics off to the side and they need to include in their strategy in terms of making them more productive? Can that actually help their productivity?
Yeah, for sure. I'm saying like, if you're working on a bunch of posts, but you're not even going to see, like if you're, let's say you put out a bunch of posts and you're working on similar posts, but a lot of those posts didn't even perform so well. So then you're wasting your time working on these other posts when you could have looked back. Like it's like, not doing your research before, working on something, or not reading the recipe before starting the thing. And then you're like, oh my God, I forgot the baking powder. Like
Yeah.
you have to really understand and see what's working in order to take that and then move that into your content strategy. You can't have a solid content strategy without gaining all those insights. It's like if you were just spending all your money on your credit card, but you never looked at your bank statements. Like you have to look at that
Yeah.
because then you don't know if you're running
You
out of
don't
money,
get
if
it.
you're broke, if you're in
Yeah.
debt, like you won't know. Like
It's true.
so it's like, you get your bill and then one time you're like, this time I'll look at it. Like after a few months, if you're not looking at that bill for a few months, you look at it, you're like, oh my God, what the heck happened to all the money?
Yeah.
Should have been paying attention. So yeah, so that's why numbers in general with everything are so important because how are you going to grow a strategy without having those insights?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I think it's really you really explained it well. It's so true. If you're not looking at it at the beginning, then the content you're doing afterwards isn't going to resonate, and then you're at least productive because you have to redefine a whole strategy. So whereas you look at it just
exactly.
from the beginning, it can really help you as well. Not just be productive, but help you in general in your job, and creating good,
Absolutely.
valuable content that resonates. Um, so I want to ask, when it comes to your social strategy, and you mentioned it, you're the only social media manager at DID. You're doing a
Mhm.
lot, and it's just you. So how do you manage your presence across different social media platforms? Like, how does your strategy differ? And do you have any examples?
Um, yeah, well, like I don't have any like picture examples, but yeah, like so definitely like for our Facebook community, we have like it's majority of people are digital influencers and content creators and YouTubers or TikTokers. So all of our content there is much more geared towards them. Whereas in our Discord community, it's a lot more of developers. So a lot of people are working with like our API to integrate, our products into their own websites. So there are a lot more technical questions. So obviously I'm not a developer. But at the same time, being the only person, everything like that, I need to have those, like at least a basic understanding of those kinds of things or coding in order to really be able to help them. Or like, for example, like I was saying with the inboxes, we get questions all the time. And a lot of them are customer support questions. But if I'm able to help them out, or if I'm able to quickly, Slack my coworker who is like our API support person and quickly ask them a question, I'd rather be the person to answer their question, in real time, instantaneously, as opposed to be like, oh, please reach out to support@did.com. Because then it like just sends them in a thing and you really want to provide the customer with a service. And when you're offering something that's like a software or, like just something on your computer, um, people just kind of like use something, but they don't really, know much about the company or they're not really involved. Like, so you really want to create a more personalized experience where they're like, oh, wow. It's like if you could have two companies that might, sell flowers, but if one of them has a significantly better customer experience, chances are you're going to that flower shop. And it might even be a little bit more expensive, but you're getting that service, which everyone appreciates. So yeah, so for me, it's like that is like the most important thing. So Really understanding what is the developers are talking about, really having things more geared towards that. So when I make the agents walkthroughs or I'll help them out with their API solutions, I work with Simon, who's our API tech support engineer. And he's like a lot with me on the Discord. I'll like quickly message him, be like, Simon, this is like a totally different language to me. I have no idea what this person's saying, like legit. And I could like be like, oh yeah, I totally know what this means, but I want to make sure we're getting the right answer. So I work with him a lot, like on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
Twitter also. Majority of our audience is businesses. But on TikTok and stuff, obviously we're having more of those content creators. So you want to be able to show how our solutions are like able to be used for those settings. Why it's perfect for TikTok, why it's perfect for social media, how you could create a digital twin of yourself for social media. That's not something that's going to resonate with businesses, obviously. So it's really about understanding the audience on all those different platforms. And that's why I have like within my son and everything broken up. And then even if I'm posting something that could go across all platforms, I never just have like one caption and just spread it across. You really have to tailor the caption in order to suit that audience. So it's like, if we're talking about something that, that's great for your customer experience in retail on LinkedIn, if we're taking like a video or something, but then it's like, if we're talking about on Facebook or an Instagram or something, it might be imagine like experiencing that kind of customer service. So it's like a different kind of approach into how you're putting that content out,
Yeah, it's
if that
interesting.
makes sense.
It does. It makes sense. So I'm wondering then what your best practices for posting on social. Does that also differ by platform?
It definitely differs by platform. But like I feel like, when it comes to posting on social and everything, really also understanding the times that your audience are going to be the most engaged. So like the different days of the week that are the most that usually have the most engagement, different times of those days. At LinkedIn, it might be 11 a.m. That's like the perfect time, but it might be 2 o'clock on Instagram. So one of the things I also like about Octopus is that I'm able to gather all that information, and as time continues to go on, and I'm able to see, it's gathering more data to see when they're the most engaged. I'm able to make sure that I can schedule all my posts, not all at once, just like throw them out there, but really put them at the times that's going to be correct for each platform in order to maximize the engagement and the amount of impressions and reach, obviously. Um, so yeah, so for me, obviously that's the best practice. And like I was saying, just tailoring your message and tailoring the voice. That's obviously you want continuity within your brands and to really have that same voice, but tailoring it to the audience for that specific platform. Is super really important. And also, like, even though we're more B2B now, and a lot of B2B companies might get a little nervous with like TikTok, like, it's too fun.
Yeah.
But it's a great outlet. People want to see that. Like, you had a lot of companies like Wendy's or Burger King that did really hysterical jokes on Twitter and people love it and it goes viral. And it's like those are great marketing campaigns. And a lot of people have been like, well, it's not so professional. Of course not, but it's a cute little tweet or something. And that's what's getting, that out there.
Yeah.
And nowadays people want like genuine connection. They want something authentic. They want you to just talk to your face. Back in the day, everyone used to have a much more like composed look to them. Like, what went behind closed doors, you would never want the public to find out. Like, all those kinds of things. And nowadays people are just like, it's kind of like I am who I am. And that's something that's really important. So they want a business that they can feel like they're connected with, not that there's this very stone cold, like guarded, very formal, um, wall in front of them. So it's really important to kind of let down your barrier, just
For
experiment.
sure. People in B2B businesses still want to laugh. Like, look at us. We still will find that
Exactly.
content interesting. So it's finding a way
Exactly.
to humanize yourself, and depending on the company and the restrictions that you have, maybe, or compliancy, whatever
Right.
B2B industry you're in, it's finding the niche that works for you. Maybe it's on one platform and not all of the platforms, but it still works. People are still
Yeah.
they still want to see it, and as you said, they want that human connection. You said something
100%.
earlier when I asked you about your strategy on different platforms, and you said that if someone messages you a product related question, you sit with product to try and understand what it is. And I think it's also really interesting that you said that. So you could reply, sorry, to give like good customer service.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say that because also recently LinkedIn's rolled out that any user can message a brand directly. So it makes
Yeah.
it even more important to be able to understand and collaborate across teams to know what to respond to your audience online. So I'm wondering,
Exactly.
I want to ask how you collaborate across departments to help you do your job efficiently. I know that's on the product side. Is there other
Yeah.
departments you collaborate with as well?
So yeah, no, so for product, one of the things I really like about DID too is that marketing and product and sales too, but we're like really aligned. Like every week we have a meeting going over the
Mhm.
roadmap, making sure everyone's aligned. And also if there's certain feedback that I'm gathering on social media that like people might want one feature and I'm hearing more about that feature than another, then the product team will know what's more of a priority. So it's really important to be synced to like different teams. Like I think that when there's a silos between all the different teams at a company, it could cause a lot of issues, and it could not happen in the beginning, but then like down the line, it's like there was a miscommunication of this or something happened there, or someone from another team didn't understand that they changed their whole thing. So it's really, really important to be aligned. So for us, I'm the only one who's a user on Octopus because I had to gain the approval and everything. That's what I was approved for. If we had everyone on there, it would be super simple to be able to tag people on there or get it to, their stations or their approvals, or, they can respond directly. So for me, it's usually like, I will, if I'll message them on Slack, if it's something really important, like let's say something is like, an issue or it's something that really needs to be resolved over a weekend, like I'll WhatsApp them if it's like really important. So make sure we take care of it, even though we're technically off the clock. But I also wouldn't want to just like I'm as the only social media person, I can't really just shut off my phone for the weekend. A, because I'll come to the office on Sunday because yeah, we're in the office on Sundays here. But I'll come to the office with like a million messages that I'd be like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my mind. So I'd rather just have them, being opened over the weekend. But also like I don't want someone to ask a question that's super important and they don't get a response for like 2 days. Like it doesn't look good on our end. So even though
Yeah.
we're a startup and we're a smaller company, you still want to make sure you're going to be able to, if anything, you have more of that, drive and obligation to really like provide that customer service because that's how you're going to continue growing and scaling. So yeah, so working with the different teams is super important. Always talk to them. Sometimes if I have a question about the sales with like our API in terms of cost, or like we have different packages, we have custom packages. So some company might want just this or just that. So really understanding the nuances and speaking to all the different teams to gain a better understanding. And then obviously the more I speak to them, if we get a similar question later on in the future, I won't have to bother them and I can answer it
Yeah.
like myself.
Yes.
So it ends up being with their benefit as well. So yeah, so that's something that's like super important.
Yeah, definitely. It's so, so important. And as you said, if you ask once, you have to ask again. So like there
Yeah,
should be this open communication between the teams because also you're the one with the in to the information of what your prospects or your audience or your customers want online. So having that,
exactly.
giving social media managers the platform there to also be there in these conversations is so important because
The
you've
end.
got the one with all the market research essentially.
Totally. It's like you have access to all the little secrets.
Yeah,
Everyone else is
exactly.
just imagining what the customers will want, and it's like, I got this.
you know. So social media is a really Tess is
She's
coming
media.
back to anyone who's watching
She's
us.
back. She's like social media. I'm there for it.
So social media is dynamic, right? Often requiring quick changes to plan content. The amount of times you've had a content calendar made and then something has to change. So, and you said
Yeah.
before, maybe the VP's doing a speech somewhere or there's an event going on or a new blog goes live suddenly and they want to push it out. So how do you balance requests from different departments or the need to shift your content strategy abruptly?
Yeah. So if it's something that like when it comes to like my organization, how everything I have prioritized, like that's one of the things that when me and my manager have our meetings, how things should be fit. Like, if something like sometimes like we'll put stuff out on the weekends, like if it's just a hiring post or stuff like that. Oftentimes I prefer not to post on like a Saturday because we're not going to get that much engagement. But if we have so much content that's like lining up and it is prioritized, but things need to go out, it's like you have to make those kinds of adjustments in order to fit your schedule without you don't want to be posting 3 times in one day on LinkedIn and people are going to get annoyed. And it's also, you're not going to get that reach. It's going to be affected.
Yeah.
So it's really understanding, if this is going to go on a Saturday, is that worth is it worth like that decline in engagement? Or is another post not as much of a priority so I can move it to next week? So I'm always having things shifted. So like I could have like, I have a lot of posts that are scheduled 1, 2, 3 weeks in advance or something. But it's very rare that it ever goes accordingly. I don't ever really like pre-schedule my posts like more than maybe 3 days in advance. I don't do like a week in advance. I never do that. Technically I could and I can move things around, but I like it's part of my organization thing. Like I need to know when I'm putting it in, and that's I see it on my calendar. I know like I this way I keep everything organized in my Asana, and then when I know it's ready for sure, that's when it's gonna go in.
Yeah.
But definitely aligning with my manager, and obviously he works right under the VP. So if I don't hear from the VP directly about something, my manager will inform me. So like things are kind of going around, but sometimes the VP will reach out and be like, no, this is more of a priority, or oh, I need this up. A lot of times we do last minute events, so things have to be, adjusted for that. Or like we had a client like the other week that needed they were filming this production and stuff. I was like almost the end of the day, and they're like, "Oh, we need you to quickly like record this," and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like you have to
Such a
be on
classic
top of all
request.
that stuff beyond. And he started laughing. He's like, it started life. I was like, yeah. I was like, totally. Like, that's the thing. So it's like those kinds of things happen. But yeah, so just taking everything with stride. It can be overwhelming sometimes. But sometimes like for me, it's like I'm like, oh my God, I have all these things going on. How am I gonna schedule? But it's like take a deep breath. And that's why like I have everything scheduled by like high priority, medium, low, no priority, or and then I have a lot of content that are like it's like filler content. So this way if like
Yeah.
something went up, but it actually ends up being under embargo, or oh no, we actually had to quickly make adjustments. I know that I'll have somebody to replace that post in case that post's not able to go out the way it's supposed to go out or on the day it's supposed to go out because you need to have something back up. So it's always good to have a plan B, C, D, E, and F, G.
Just have it all basically.
Just in case. And we all have the time. So,
So it's interesting because you're saying the stuff that you have high priority, medium priority, low priority. When there's so much on your plate, let's say there's lots of busy initiatives, sorry, I can't pronounce that word for some reason, going on at your company and your time is more constricted. So to stay productive, you do have to prioritize certain tasks. I know it's different
yeah,
at every company, but for you,
every
what
company.
tasks then would be deprioritized? What is low priority? Because it's hard because everything is a
Right. So that's the
priority in
thing. It's
social.
it's really on a case by case basis. Like it's not
Yeah.
like, it's like a one category, something like, oh, these are the kinds of posts. Like the filler posts are they're filler posts. But for everything else, it's really like sometimes I'll, if my manager says one thing's high priority, but then he's like, oh, I actually need this one to go out today. So sometimes I'll ask him, I'll be like, so let me know if these are both a really high priority. Would you like them to both go out today, obviously at a later time, or is it okay if this one goes out tomorrow? Like I always like, put it in their hands because obviously at the end of the day the ones who are above me, my manager, the VP marketing, like they're the ones who are going to be the final decision makers with a lot of the things. So oftentimes I'll ask them. But if there's other things where they're like it's like a medium priority, it's like as long as it goes out this week or as long as it's out by the end of the week, that allows me to make everything else fit in. Where it doesn't have to go out by a specific day or by today or within the next 5 minutes or 10 minutes ago. Like I know how I could move everything around. But it's for the things that are all high priorities that are going out within the same week. That's when I'm going to have to be like, okay, so you tell me when you want them both out and which one's a higher priority of the
Yeah.
three.
No, it's a good way to do it because also sometimes you can't choose. So by asking somebody else when there's a list of loads of things, they can really help you
Totally.
understand what's lower. Because I think to us, we see everything as a high priority as well, and everything
Everything.
needs to be done. Nothing can be neglected because it's also important in its own way. But I guess it's
Yeah,
pushing it by a day, pushing it by 2 days, finding what works. And I know at some
exactly.
companies there are things that maybe they can be like, okay, this is less of a priority. It's like an
Yeah,
extra, but not every company has that.
right.
So with that, I'm going to move on to the last question. I can't believe we're here already, but I'm so interested to know because you do so much at DID. I'm sure you've done so much in your professional journey as well. So, over the years, what's the best piece of social media advice you've ever been given?
Oh, that's a good question. The best social media advice I ever been given. Um, I mean, it was actually the one that I was saying before about getting creative. It was from my former manager at a healthcare company that I worked at. And he told me, like, don't be afraid to experiment. Like, don't let the metrics and all the numbers and everything hold you back from trying to be creative, from, trying something new. Like a lot of these companies, like, especially with DID, I'm the first social media manager. They're bringing me in. They want to see what's working. We shifted from B2C to B2B, like, so if you're not gonna, sometimes in life you have to sorry. Sometimes in life you just have to like kind of like take a risk, even if it's scary. It's like I love roller coasters, but I'm petrified every time I'm standing in line. Until I'm on the roller coaster, I quickly like strap myself in and I'm like literally freaking out until I go. But I know I'm gonna like it in the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's like don't hold yourself back of the fear of the numbers. Yeah, numbers are important. Yeah, a lot of companies put a lot of pressure on the numbers without seeing the whole picture. But if you're gonna, you could really change your entire strategy and you could really, really, really reshape your social media game by taking those risks. So that was the best advice I ever got for sure.
For sure.
Something resonates with me still.
I love that advice. I think it's so important and you can always try and try again. So thank you for sharing that because I really do think like you can push your creativity as far as you want it to go. There really
Yeah.
isn't a limit to it. So thank you so much for joining me. I
Oh my God, thank you so
loved
much for
recording this
having me.
episode. It was so
This is
much
so much
fun.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was so fun and it's so great to hear like how you stay productive with all the little things you're doing. And I know this is going to be so helpful to everyone because there's a lot on all of our plates and we can do it and we just have to find the ways to be productive. And also, I guess if anyone wants to tune into our own podcast, they can search for it Spotify, I'm assuming YouTube,
Yeah, and Apple
um,
Music and like all those. Yeah, all
all of
breaked
them.
up.
If you want to hear more from Sheldon, then look that up and feel free to connect with him on LinkedIn as well. But thank you so much for joining me. I've loved this.
Thank you. Oh my God, this is amazing.